going on?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. So what's going on with you?
Not much. Been a little bit behind with work, so I've had a lot to do recently.
Now, you do this for fun, right? This is just like your whatever.
Exactly, and it takes too much time.
It's too much time consumption. I know. It's crazy. Way
Yeah,
too much time.
it's a lot.
People don't realize what goes into just, if you want to do good content, at least, it takes a lot of planning, structuring the videos out and editing. Do you do all the editing yourself too?
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, same thing. Yeah. So it's a whole job itself. I
it's
mean,
basically a second job. Exactly.
yeah, you got to like really want to do it though. Cause like after a week, you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this is going nowhere.
And the worst part is if you take a break, it just all goes away. You can't stop.
Yeah, I know. And that's my biggest guilty was when I first started YouTube. Like you go like, you go in the tunnel vision for a couple months. You're like, this is great. And you're like, I just want a couple days off. And then you like kind of almost like get used to not doing them. And you're like, I got to go back. And then you like watch your views literally go to like half. Like they drop substantially as soon as you stop putting content out. So you got to be consistent.
It's like, I think the way that viewers see it is it's sort of like their favorite TV show or something like that, where or not even their favorite, but like you develop sort of even though you're a viewer, you develop like a friendship with the guy who's presenting. You want to see him. You have a long day at work. You want to go
forward to it.
Yeah, and then when it just stops coming, they find something else, and then
no
loyalty.
I mean, I do the same thing with my people I follow on YouTube. Like if I don't see their video, I'm like, oh, what the fuck happened? And you go. You'd like, it'll say like 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago. You're like, oh, something happened. Like your mind just immediately does that, which is kind of fucked up because you're like, it's only been a week. It's like,
do you post on weekends also?
My last channel was good Monday through Friday, but this channel hasn't developed a following yet. So I've kind of just been putting them up as much as I can, like this weekend I did one on the weekend, but my last channel though, I didn't have any traffic on the weekends though for some reason. It was just quiet.
That's why I was not doing the weekend ones, but it turns out actually on Sundays, those videos get views.
Oh, Sundays are...
But I'm having like such a hard time committing to the weekend because then that's it. Then there's like 7 days.
Yeah. But I've noticed though, you put content out later than you record it though. So you must be backlogged a little bit, no? Or no?
Yeah. I have a lot of backlogs, but the thing about my stuff is that like a lot of the stuff I'm trying to do is research based. So I'm planning to write a book in the next 2 years on cognitive enhancement. Basically my journey trying to learn how to optimize my brain function for well-being, but also to protect myself from long-term cognitive decline, which happens to all people.
Yeah, everybody, yeah.
So
this is all kind of like...
So basically, I do research and then slowly I start to present the research that I was doing. So so I have my actual job, then I have the research portion, and then I have the videos.
Right. So that's a lot.
Exactly. So I was on vacation. You had a short vacation? Yeah,
we just tried to go away for a couple of days because, me and her haven't done anything since, I don't remember last time. I think it was like last year, I think. We did anything, because New Jersey, New York has very strict, we've had very strict restrictions. I mean, you're probably the worst, California, but, we were up there for a while, like neck and neck with you. So we were like, let's just try to get away for a little bit. So we went to Long Island, which is, the Hamptons area is a good area to go to, but between all the restrictions and the weirdness with people and just all the different rules they had, it just was not like the most relaxing thing, So, at least we got away. We got out of our normal day-to-day life, which was good. It was a good break, but it's just such a hassle to go anywhere right now. So it's like, that's why I don't want to fly anywhere, to be honest. I don't want to deal with it. So, but it was a good break for a little bit. I feel like I didn't even do anything because I was still working. So it's unfortunate. I can't just like let it go. I just could never do that. It would never work. So,
are you coaching a lot still?
Like it's kind of funny. I was just doing my numbers this weekend to see where I was at, and it's dramatically dropped off significantly this year because of obviously COVID, So, I count my blessings every day that I've started these other things because I'd be in some real deep shit if I didn't, to be honest, you know, because the coaching is not substantial like it was. I mean, I was making really crazy money on coaching. And then this year it was just kind of like, now I don't know if it's going to come back next year. I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm not betting my life on that for next year. You know, I'm putting all my eggs in kind of my supplement store, the gym, and then the supplement line that I have. So I'm putting all my eggs into that right now. So if coaching comes back, great. But I'm not like stressed about it now, you know? But I'm not going to take on what I did before. It was over 100 people all the time. It was insane. So like that literally controlled me. Like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't me and my girlfriend's life anymore. It was me and my client's life. So I don't want to get back to that point. I like where I'm at right now. It's less than 50 and it's manageable. I can talk to everybody all day long. It's not like stressful. You know, and the engagement is much better. I just like where I'm at right now. So I don't plan on going to that extreme again. Not at least right now. I don't, you know, but I get like obsessed with it. That's the thing, you know, like I'm like, oh, I want to take on more, you know? And then I'm like, fuck, why'd I do that? Cause I like doing it. It's fun. I like doing it. You know, it's just,
I think everyone I've spoken to has less clients right now. Except
I hope so. I hope it's not just me.
Everyone I've spoken to is saying the same thing, that they've had
and my clients really weren't competitors. They really weren't. I didn't focus on them. I liked having lifestyle clients because they were just, there's a lot of complications when it goes into getting a client that competes. There's just, you know, all the different opinions, the different things they read, and they take in too much information. You know what I mean? And then they have all these different answers to things when they ask you. It's almost like they're coming at you, not asking a question. So I don't like that. I like the regular people, but since gyms have been closed and no one's been training really, that's why I think my demographic fell off, to be honest with you. But you know, I'm not really worried about it. I'm happy with what I'm at right now, to be honest with you. It's much less stressful, but we'll see.
Do you get a lot of consultations also?
I do, but I don't do them. I don't. I used to do them. I used to do a lot of them, but then honestly, these people don't know where to draw the line as far as, because, you know, once you give out your phone number, it's over, you know, they think it's an open line for like a hotline to help you, to help them. And they're like, hey, just have a quick question. Like, I can't say no to people. So I'm like, I'm answering the questions for them. And I'm like, these, you know, they didn't pay me, but I don't think like that. I'm not like, oh, you have to pay me every second for my time. But then it becomes like almost too much. And they're like emailing you, then they're texting you, and then they're DMing you all the time. And I'm like, this is not like a friendship now because I get a consultation with you, you know? Some people know, but most people don't draw the line. They just abuse it. And then when you tell them no, you're a dick. So I just stopped doing them. I just cut them off completely. It wasn't really helping my business in any way. They would want to ask 8 million questions in 15, 20 minutes, half hour. And I just felt used afterwards. You know what I mean? I didn't feel like I helped the person. I just felt like I was literally just Google for a half hour for them. And then they move on. I get nothing out of it. So I was like, forget this. I'm not doing it anymore. There's good money there if you want to do that. Like if that's an angle, if you're not coaching, that's fine. But to do both, I just don't see the value in it. You know, it's hard.
I get way more consultations than like coaching things, which I actually don't think is rational. Because
if that's the case, I will send them your way then.
Because what happens is this: I get like a lot of individual people who will book like 6 consultations in 1 month.
Oh wow!
Like repeated consultations, but that's way more than the coaching price. And
absolutely way more.
You know what I mean? So sometimes I'm trying to tell them, like, you're really spending. You shouldn't book one now. Just wait a month or 2. Gather some more questions. I don't want people to spend all their money on it.
I know. No, it's crazy though. They spend everything on it.
Yeah. The worst thing for me is the DMs with questions from people I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be, like you said, I don't want to be a dick and not respond. But it's like a long question that's detailed, and I even have a website option where you can like it's cheap. Like you buy an email response, and whenever they do that, I write a whole page. I spend a lot of time on it and stuff. But they'll still send these DMs those frustrate me a little bit. I have to
admit. Do you think they're copying and pasting it though, and just sending it to like 20 people and seeing what they get?
I sometimes get that feeling that it's like,
because they've fucked up sometimes and sent it to my other Instagram pages, and I got the same message on like 2 Instagrams, because they'll send it to like my supplement store and they'll send it to me, or they'll send it to my Save Your SARMs page about a SARM question, and the same thing. It's literally copy and pasted, and I'm like, you dick, like. At least change something around, or engage a little different. Don't just mass send it out to people. But yeah, I can't stand that. But I do, I never leave a message on read unless it's like some asshole asking for drugs or something. You always get those questions. But I try to give them at least something, because I don't want them to get the wrong information, and then I don't know. I just feel bad. I just, and I advertise that I help people, and then it's like, if I don't help them, these people just all talk. That's the problem. They all talk. And like, I sell supplements. So like, I don't want to get a bad name either. These people are like vicious.
Especially in the bodybuilding world. They really,
they really are out for you if you don't help them. It's crazy. It's like, they're animals, dude.
You get enemies that will chase you around, dislike
yes. They'll troll every photo, everything you do. I'm like, God, don't you have anything better to do? But yeah, you experienced it.
Let's introduce this show. So basically, some people were asking, what's this show about? And basically, Nick and I both had an idea together at the same time, which was we had our interview last time, and it was such a pleasure to talk to Nick. And, it's easy to talk to you, but more important than that, you provide so much value, because you were a person who grew up in the bodybuilding world. You know it as intimately as anyone else. You've coached tons of clients. You're very involved in the bodybuilding world. On the other hand, most of my stuff is actually what I'm interested in is longevity and health and recognition. But I used to be a competitive arm wrestler, and I have a lot of friends who are world record holders in powerlifting, and I've been weightlifting for a long time, the strength side.
Yep.
We thought we could present in this show as sort of a street smart and a book smart kind of together, where Nick can address really practical questions from his experience, and sometimes maybe I can offer something I've read about or some small experiences I've had as well myself, which I think is a great idea.
Yep. It's great.
So we thought we'd start the first episode by collecting some questions. Now I posted asking for questions. I got like 7. Nick got like 50, which I put out next to me.
Those are like the best ones, I think. I mean, it's hard to get questions from people because some people ask some crazy stuff, but for the most part they were okay.
These are good questions actually. I think it's pretty cool. So I think we'll get started with yours, and we'll go back and forth and move into mine a little bit.
You have them in front of you?
Yeah, I printed them out. Do you have them too?
I could pull them up, yeah.
Yeah, I had printed them out. I could ask them if you want. Whatever's easier for you.
Okay, whatever you want to do.
So one guy, obviously some of the questions are deeper than other ones, but I think most of them have some interesting components. So one gentleman who I can't see his name, but he said, can GW be ran into a show, or does it cause water retention? Let's talk about Cardarine.
Yep. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. So to start off, just to give a little back history of what GW does, it was originally designed as a heart medicine to help with cholesterol, men or women who have high cholesterol. It uses cholesterol basically as an energy source to, increase your cardiovascular output, who have, may have heart problems or complications with their cardiovascular system. So it's not really a SARM. So, it's a PPAR agonist, which is going to help, red blood cells in the blood, increase your blood flow. So it's not really technically a SARM, it's just part of the SARM family, and which makes it really cool, because there's really no risk in running it for extensive periods of time. You can look at it as almost like a medicine, more so than a supplement, nutraceutical. So no, I've never seen really any water retention from it or anything like that, because it's not really affecting your cortisol levels or testosterone levels, IGF levels, anything like that. So hormonally, it's not really going to cause any problems there. So I don't see any way possible it could. But for me, from contest prep, I usually just remove anything that doesn't really going to benefit me the last week anyway, when it comes to bodybuilding shows. But if you're not doing a bodybuilding show, you got nothing to worry about. you can run it, as long as you need to and not worry about any type of water retention from it or anything.
By the way, do you remove testosterone when you compete in the last week?
A lot of people do. But from my experience, my body kind of, I don't want to use the word fell apart, but I deflated a lot from not having high test levels before shows. For some reason, my fullness would go away. My pop would go away. I was very sensitive to chemicals when it comes to showtime. So I honestly didn't cut it. The only thing I did cut was growth hormone. I would hold a lot of water from that, like a lot of subcutaneous water. So that was out almost like a month before my show for me to be able to get all the water out of my system. But testosterone, I honestly kept pretty much all the way into my show. I didn't shoot the last couple of days because there was no point of putting that risk, putting an injection in my body. I didn't do anything that close to a show. But testosterone stayed in me, but most clients have to take it out. I mean, most people do.
But
just because
you were very fond of AIs, though. You'd take a lot of AIs while you were with them.
Yeah, I noticed a significant difference in conditioning and hardness from, also you can overdo them. That's the thing. A lot of people overdo them. They take too much. You got to know your threshold with them as far as, the synergy of which ones work well with you. For some reason, even though Arimidex and Romacin on paper is not really the same, they kind of work on the same mechanism. There's a couple of things that are different about them, the suicide inhibitor and stuff like that. But, hormonally, they work on the same path pretty much, right? I mean, they're not like dramatically different. But for some reason, I noticed, Romacin did not do the job for me. Arimidex was much better, much stronger. Yeah. It blocked all the estrogen I needed to. I was very sensitive to estrogen. I had the worst gyno ever coming up, as far as, even the steroid abuse. Without the steroid abuse, I had a little bit of, gynecomastia.
The teenagers, yeah.
Yeah, so I had to be very careful when I used hormones, especially using DECA by itself at 15, 16 years old. That wasn't the brightest thing. So that's where it all started too. So, but that's just my insight on it. Not everyone does the same thing though, I noticed,
So Cardarine, so basically there's this class of drugs that agonize the PPARs. There's PPR delta or beta, depending on which side of the Atlantic you live on. That's what Cardarine agonizes. And it's most famous, even in the medical literature, for doing that. Then there are PPR gammas, which, for example, telmisartan, the angiotensin receptor blocker, agonizes. But there are also other drugs that do that. They usually end in IDE. They're usually given to diabetics. When you agonize the PPAR gamma, what ends up happening is you sort of force fat to go to the right areas. So instead of having fat in your bloodstream, like triglycerides, it'll put the fat where it should be subcutaneously and not as much viscerally. So which is one great reason to use telmisartan. There's also another PPR family, which also has diabetic kind of drugs. And some of these drugs are related to cholesterol also. The PPR delta, which is Cardarine's affecting, I don't know personally how it's causing that crazy endurance. I didn't look that much into it. Maybe there is research because, as I said, it's really well researched in the medical literature.
Right.
But there's a couple of things. So Cardarine does appear to have some health benefits. There are clear health benefits. But the problem is that in rodent studies, it has been shown to increase tumor development. Now, it should be noted, guys, whenever anyone's reading medical literature and seeing that rodents develop cancers, rodents are far more likely to develop cancers than humans. And one of the reasons for that is that not all rodents, by the way, I'm talking about lab rodents. Right. Lab rodents are genetically, they've been bred in a certain way where they're very likely to get cancers.
Yeah.
We also have much longer telomeres than we do. Telomeres are like if you think of your shoestring, at the end of your shoestring, there's something to wrap it to hold the string together. Well, that's what a telomere does sort of to DNA. And when your telomere is very long, your cells are more likely to replicate. When the telomere breaks apart, your cells stop replicating.
Right.
So mice are much more likely to get cancers in general. But personally, because I know his question was
you also saw the dosages they were giving those.
Yeah, very high doses. But that's generally what
per body. Well, of course, that's for the test. They have to, right? Yeah.
They try to see the extreme effects so that you can. So, I mean, is it a huge concern? I mean, I don't really think so. But
Right.
personally, what I found cool about Cardarine, which I use sometimes, but not often when I used to lift weights, was
Yeah.
that unlike equipoise or erythropoietin, you can take it and the next day or the same day, you will have better endurance. So you
Yeah.
don't actually have to take it every day. You could take it on your workout days. You could take it on your leg days.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about it, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. It works immediately, which I don't, when people come to me, because the most common question, how fast will I see results with everything I'm sure if I take this, how fast will I notice this? And I'm like, I always tell them, give it a week. Cause I just don't want to, now anything that's better than a week, I know it's going to be, I'm going to look great. So the next day they're like, I felt it. Is that possible? I'm like, of course, and then I kind of explain at that point, because if I say, hey, you're going to feel it the first day, placebo is going to be like, oh, I don't feel it. I don't feel it. I don't feel it. What is he talking? He's lying, So I always stretch it a little bit, because it's like a white lie. It's a little stretch, I don't want to tell people, yeah, you're going to feel it immediately.
Yeah, under promise.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's phenomenal. I mean, it really is. I mean, for what it's doing to, a lot of athletes that use it. I mean, if you Google just Cardarine on Google and you look up, like drug test Cardarine, or to see how many athletes have popped, Olympic athletes, boxers, fighters, like football players. I mean, there's some string of history to that drug for a long time too. It's been around for a long time. So this is not some new age thing either. That's why I try to stress to people.
Yeah, and I don't think that the increase in endurance could be, as I said, I don't know exactly how it happens, but I don't think it's through hematopoiesis, more red blood cells directly, because it's—
You don't think so?
Yeah, because it may have that effect also, but the effect is so quick that it's not possible that it's just the erythropoietin. It's probably a change in the glucose metabolism and fat metabolism. And
right.
Like that. By the way, have you ever used it weeks on end? And have you seen, is there a chronic effect? Like, does it build up where you get even more?
I have a really good test subject that I'll share with you when we get off, that doing Ironman training, and he's substantially used it now for 2 weeks, going on his third week now. And he was already at a pretty crazy level, doing 80 mile, 80-mile runs and bikes and swims and stuff. And he's substantially improving times that he hasn't even been able to push for a while now, months. So he's been on it now for 2-3 weeks. Every day he's like, it's just getting better and better and better. And his times are blowing out of the water. And he's like, I'm going to be at like, he's just a regular guy, but he's turned into an Ironman athlete. And, obviously he has the genetics to do it at first, because he's been able to do this for so long naturally, but with this, his times of getting better, and he's been using it daily. So is it triggered by that? I don't know. I can't 100% say, yes, it's all Cardarine, it's all SARMs, but he's training like an animal too. But that little advantage, it could go a long way with that type of training at that level.
It's a phenomenal drug. There's no question about that. Truly, it's enhancing. And by the way, for the younger guys that may be out going clubbing, want to impress a girl, it may be a good drug to take on a night out as well, because you can really you'll surprise the lady.
you get a nice kick from it too. It's not a stim kick. It's euphoria. I try to relate it to. It's good though. It's one of the most impressive. I talk about it a lot because it's a very impressive SARM or drug, whatever you want to call it. I think it's the most impressive one there is, to be honest, because I've used EPO before, back when I was a very young kid, and I never got the feeling or the effects I did from GW. I mean, it wasn't even close, to be honest with you, which is crazy.
Now, maybe I should bring this up to you, actually, because you have a SARM company. There are some EPO peptides. Okay, so
I've seen those.
I don't know if they're being produced. I have a huge article series. I researched them. I even mentioned in the article series which ones are not patented. And there's like 5 or 6 of them. The interesting thing about these is many people don't realize erythropoietin, it has an erythropoietic effect. It increases red blood cells. But if you cut down the molecule into a peptide, sometimes it won't increase red blood cells, but it'll still cause all the growth and healing effects that happen from the JAK-STAT pathway that are similar to like BPC and TB500. And nobody's really explored this. This is an opportunity. The problem is, from what I talked to Tony Huge, I was trying to research if I could make it just for myself. I didn't want to sell it. I just because
of course,
really useful for the brain. But he's telling me these guys charge like $30,000 to make a new molecule in China. I don't know how accurate that is.
Ooh.
But yeah, so I've moved away from it. But that's a huge opportunity for people who want better healing, better growth without getting the blood thickening effect.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was nervous about when I did use the EPO back then, was the blood thickening. I mean, I used a very low dose anyway. I didn't use anything close to like a Lance Armstrong dose, but because I was already on a lot of things that thickened my blood anyway. So I was like, let me just see what type of effect I get from a little bit of it, but I don't think it was enough at the time because I was so big. I don't think it was enough to even stimulate what was already going on. You know what I mean? So my blood was already, God knows at that point, duped. So
yeah, it would do things that GH and IGF-1 wouldn't do through the JAK pathway. So it's like a different pathway of growth.
Right.
The danger with that is that it could increase something called angiogenesis, which is the creation of new blood vessels, which is what BPC does, by the way, and TB500.
Yeah, which are amazing. Those two are amazing.
Exactly. It'd probably be more powerful than them, I think. And also it would cause a healing, like rapid healing.
Right. Recovery rate that's why Lance and them loved it, because they could, they could do, crazy practice runs every day, full blown marathons every day and recover, nuts.
By the way, have you ever heard of anyone in bodybuilding getting testicular cancer? Like Lance got testicular cancer. I don't know if you've heard of Furious Pete. He's
yeah, of course. I know Furious Pete.
Nice guy. He got testicular cancer also, and testicular.
Interesting.
It's the most common cancer in young men. But what's interesting about it is I think it has something to do with when you're on steroids and your balls aren't functioning properly. They do develop fibrosis, scar tissue inside them. There's been post-mortem studies of bodybuilders. They have fibrosis. So I don't know if that's a little bit related.
Do you think it's from that, or you think it's from low test?
I think it's from the balls not being activated, because they start atrophying and develop oxidative damage, and they have scar tissue. And then we know that from the postmortem studies. And then I'm thinking having all those growth factors in your body. So if you have some damaged cells, they may grow into a tumor.
So do you think being on HRT at a young age is bad?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I think it's bad.
Yeah,
I don't think it's that bad, but basically that's the main reason I'm concerned about it personally. I don't take HRT.
You don't take anything? No.
I took HCG and recombinant FSH for a while.
Right.
I'd like to go back on HCG because I'd like slightly higher test levels, but it's very expensive to get the pharmaceutical versions.
Yeah. I mean, now how much did you have to do to increase your test levels of HCG?
To repair the system after I was using, actually, by the way, I've done a very detailed literature review of this. I have a blog post.
Oh, okay.
But basically, the doses, by the way, they use in medical literature are crazy. Some of them are 10,000 units once a week. The average is about 3,000 3 times a week.
Okay, yeah, okay. So we're on the same ballpark with that,
yeah. Do you use it still, or you just stay on HRT?
I use HRT, but I do need to do a PCT again soon, because I do believe in resetting, depending on what, your position. There's so many different scenarios we could talk about as far as what the right and wrong way is. But for me, I like to do at least a reset once or twice a year, since I'm just using HRT. I'm not cycling anymore. My last cycle was 2015. I haven't read anything since then. So, but I do like to do resets for sperm count reasons and testosterone, just my balls, all that type of stuff, suppression. I
would use like a low dose, like 500 units twice a week if it's affordable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Keep them alive, just if you don't use something in your body, you lose it. That's the problem.
I know. And I worked so hard to get them back. So I don't want to lose it.
So there's another question from a gentleman that worried me. I think, I can't see his name on this one, but he says, I'm in my second steroid cycle, and I feel excruciating pain in my lower back, and then in brackets it says kidneys.
Uh-oh.
So, by the way, has that ever happened to you? Did you?
No. It's funny. I was talking to a close friend of mine about that today. Not kidney pain, but just side effects in general. Because I do want to like we talked about this, I do want to get back in shape again and document it and do it for my company and myself mostly. Not get big, but just get in shape. And I was like, every time I've tried in the past now, not recently, but I would try to run like a little bit of something just to see how it would feel. Besides testosterone, I felt every side effect, which is weird because coming up until I retired, I never felt a side effect before, nothing. And he's an older guy. He's not as young as I am, but he's a little older than me. And he's doing a show and doing he's documenting his transformation. And I said to him, how are you able to run anything? He's like, I can't. He goes, I even tried just taking Anadrol and my whole body just wigged out. I felt every side effect possible. And he's like, and I stopped doing stuff for so long. And I tried to do it again. And this is not an uncommon thing though. I've noticed most men that stop and try to go back to it, it's not the same. Like they have anxiety, they have blood pressure problems, they have hair loss, they have this, they have that. You know what I mean? All the craziness that you never thought you would feel just from a little bit, and I would like to use something if I'm going to go back and get in shape just for a little bit, because it's hard. I spoiled myself. I trained my whole life with it. So I don't know any better. And like me lifting naturally is very hard, dude. I'm not as motivated as most people think I am, when it comes to like, I love working out, but I like being enhanced working out, not like, this is fucking, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, it's fun being enhanced. It is. It's addicting. There's a feeling that you get from it and it's euphoric. And I'm not going to lie, I'm addicted to that. And that's why I like it, so I'm having a hard time, accepting that. So, but the kidney thing, I never felt before. Thank God,
It's like driving a Porsche Turbo around the track for a while and then being a Camry and being on the track with a Camry. Like, what am I doing here? I don't need to do this.
It's literally, it's identical to the performance car. Yes, identical. Yes, it's not the same. Nowhere near the same. So, but I never, thank the Lord, I never had like crazy elevated kidney or liver or any type of issue ever during my competition season, which is hard to believe for most people. I had all the issues after, it all caught up to me after, but luckily it was all fixable. The damage was not severe. And I'm back to normal, but I hear the lower back pain, but I think some people sometimes don't know how to decipher whether it's a lower back pump or kidney. Cause kidney pain is, have you ever had kidney stone before or anything?
No, but I'm a hypochondriac about kidneys.
So that's a severe pain. I mean, you're not yourself if you have that type of pain. So I don't know, I'm not underestimating this guy's pain, but people get it confused all the time though. That's for sure.
So let's first establish that Nick and I are both not medical doctors. So
right.
Clearly there's not medical advice. We're not allowed to give medical advice. And the only reason we're answering this question is because we want to, we care about, this sounds very scary. So let me just give you some tips being a hypochondriac myself. And while I was taking androgenic steroids, I was always concerned about, because I had high blood pressure. So I was always very concerned about my kidney. So these are some tips I learned. First of all, when you go to a doctor and you want to check your kidney values, you don't want to be using the EGFR if you're very muscular. You don't want to be using that. You don't want to be using even the creatinine that much. What you want to look at is something called cystatin C. That's a C-Y-A-S-T, cystatin. It's Cia and then statin.
You got it right, yeah.
And that metric does not really account for your body mass. So if your cystatin C is out of range, there's something going on with your kidneys, which could be temporary, and it may go away, or it could be some long-term damage. What you do after that is you go to your doctor and you specifically ask him to give you an ultrasound of your kidneys. That's the first step. They do an ultrasound. They look at how the blood is flowing through in the kidneys. And this is not a 100%. Like they could say your kidneys look great, like they did to me. And my kidneys may be great. I don't believe it. But they checked it out and it seemed fine. I did it at a top hospital. By the way, it's very important when you get your ultrasound. Look, your ultrasound is only as good as the technician working there. If the technician doesn't know what he's doing, if he doesn't have 20 years, if he's not at the top hospital, he may tell you it's good. Just like your fMRI, if you do one for your heart, they may tell you it's good, but it's all about the technician being able to analyze that.
Yeah,
so don't go do that.
That's a major thing.
Just like Nick said, the kidney pain is in a specific area. It could be in the bottom of your lower back, but it could be a little bit on the sides.
It varies for sure.
Yeah, and if you feel that kind of pain, you should immediately go deal with it. And also another thing maybe you should be doing also is checking your blood pressure immediately, just to check, am I in, a very high blood pressure? Now, just for you guys to know about how kidneys get damaged, it's not just the blood pressure. The blood pressure causes damage. First of all, your kidneys have to filter blood that is harder to deal with. It could be thicker, it could be stuff like that. But also in the kidneys, the blood vessels in the kidneys start rupturing, which causes permanent damage. But there's other things as well. So high protein diets cause much more work, hyperfiltration from the kidneys. That's one thing. Like people like Milos Sarshev tells people to take 500 grams of protein, you will destroy your kidneys over time. Yeah. Nobody is immune. So I don't know how Milos's kidneys are, but I can tell you if he's really been using 500 grams for 30 years, they will not be good. And you can look at his client, Naso Sombati, was taking 500 grams. When he died, he did not just only have heart failure, but total kidney failure also at the same time. So that's one thing. The other thing is your actual body size. The bigger you are, the more your poor kidneys have to filter. And what happens is that they develop something called they grow, hypertrophy. The kidney grows. As it grows, some of the intricate the details of the kidney start basically ripping apart. They're called the glomeruli. And this creates something called glomerulosclerosis, like atherosclerosis of the blood vessels, but you get it in the kidney. But the other thing that most people don't know is that androgens themselves cause they're nephrotoxic. They cause damage to the kidneys directly. I'm not talking about steroids. I'm talking about even a male's normal testosterone level.
Yeah, that's why I always stress to people to make sure this is a very small part of what you're saying, but kidney and liver supplements are necessary if you're on a high protein diet or just even training hard because of the damage it does to your body.
We have a question on that, which is a great question. That's a great thing to talk about as well. But just to be clear, so if you take a rodent and you, what do they call that? Castrate the rodent, a male rodent. You take away his balls, he will develop kidney disease slower than a non-castrated rodent. So even just normal levels of testosterone in a mouse will cause them to develop kidney damage quicker. And if you take a female rodent and overectomize her, remove her estrogen, all that, and give her testosterone, she'll develop kidney damage faster than a normal female rodent. And men develop kidney failure quicker than women. And the problem with the kidney is this: if you plan to live like I hope to live, maybe I won't succeed, but I hope to live to 80 or 90 and be healthy, right? We can't control it, but we can do our best. What happens, many people don't realize that most people in their 60s, they never used steroids, they've never done anything, they didn't have high blood pressure. Most people have limited kidney function as they get older. So that's one of the things that you try to manage it as best as you can. We'll talk in a second about supplements and things like that, how to approach it as well.
Yeah.
But if you feel pain, go immediately to your doctor and make sure you check their cystatin C, because you might check your creatinine or EGFR and he tells you, whoa, this is way out of range. But you're 230 pounds. I used to be 230 pounds muscular. It was always out of range. My EGFR was horrible. They were telling me your kidneys are going to fail. But then they did the ultrasound. They said, no, your kidney's actually okay.
But the ultrasound point you made about the technician is so important, because I had umbilical hernia that I needed to go get done. Just a quick story. And the technician was a terrible technician that I didn't realize at the time. So she never even caught my umbilical hernia on the ultrasound. So, but they did catch a growth in my liver, like a little, what do you want to? Benign tumor. Yeah. But luckily it's not causing any blockage. It's very small. The doctor said it's common, it happens as you get older, but it's nothing to worry about, but just keep an eye on it, make sure it's not growing or whatnot. But it's kind of weird how things happen, right? Like I didn't know that was there. I didn't know that was going to happen. I went there for an umbilical hernia ultrasound and she caught that by accident. Like, it's just kind of funny that you said that, because that happened not that long ago and it scared the shit out of me, because I got the phone call and you know how they leave messages. They're like, we can't leave this on your voicemail because you didn't sign the thing. I'm like, what the fuck? But luckily, knock on wood, it was nothing to stress about. I mean, it happens, it's part of it's part of human evolution. I think a lot of people get scared at things and they assume the worst, but your body's always changing. These things are always going to evolve, even whether you're on steroids or not. Like, things are going to happen. You got to just be able to take it with a grain of salt and realize, like, okay, what can I do to better this or fix this? That's all. But ultrasound is very important, though, as far as the technician goes, though. I learned that the hard way, but that was a scare.
It's a great story, actually, you just told. So let's talk a little bit about liver tumors, because many people don't know what they are. So not all liver tumors are malignant. They're not all cancerous. Like the one you're talking about, hopefully it's not cancerous. They may have to do a biopsy of it to see.
Yeah.
Actually, I should tell a couple.
They did they did a MRI. No, it was an MRI.
It was probably an MRI that you were doing.
MRI they did to realize that it's not cancerous because the ultrasound wasn't clear enough to decipher whether or not. And then I had to do an MRI, and then that declared that it was fine, and the test came back negative. So, which I was learning from that experience as well. You know, I knew about the growths obviously in the tumor liver, but to what degree or how they're read or what they need to do is something new to me too. But they can happen. They said it's normal, which is it's pretty. You know, like you were saying. Go ahead.
So Vigorous Steve, I think it was Vigorous Steve, was telling me a story recently that I guess a client or a friend of his got punched or something in his abdomen. And when he got punched, he went to the hospital for the punch. They found out he had a tumor in his abdomen, a huge one, got ruptured. And he had no idea his liver was filled with tumors. And many people actually, especially that use androgenic steroids, end up with small tumors. Now, the tumors are not very dangerous. The problem is if you have a malignant tumor, which is what's called hepatocellular carcinoma, which is liver cancer. My grandmother died of liver cancer. Of course, she never used androgenic steroids, and she was a woman. And this is important to note. Why? Because androgens actually help the liver function. So women are much more likely to get fatty liver disease, which is a very common disease in the US. When you get fatty liver disease, eventually, which is literally fat in your liver, and it's like a kind of visceral fat, and it's even inside the cells, not just on the liver. Yeah. When you get fatty liver, what ends up happening next is you get something called steatosis of the liver. Steatosis of the liver is when your body starts depositing collagen in the liver. The next stage after steatosis is cirrhosis. There is no cure for cirrhosis. You've heard of alcoholics that have cirrhosis. By the way, you know what they give them? The only FDA-approved medication for cirrhosis? It's called Udka. It's a cousin of Tudka. So Tudka is a very helpful supplement. We can get into that later.
Yeah, very good.
It helps the bile flow and so on. But that's one kind of liver disease. There's another kind that maybe we shouldn't get too much into it. It mainly affects pregnant women. It's called the cholestatic liver, which is when the bile ducts are not functioning properly and so on. The third one are these kind of tumors and HCC, hepatocellular carcinoma. Now, androgens actually help the liver get rid of fat. So men who go on HRT, for example, they have less fatty livers. Women have more fatty livers than men. Yeah. So in that way, androgens are good for the liver. But very strong androgens, especially things like trenbolone or androgens that stay in the liver because of the way they're formulated, like anadrol or dianabol.
Right.
There are many, I actually did a really detailed video on this. There are many, about 100 cases so far of liver cancers and liver tumors developing from. In fact, one of my subscribers has liver cancer right now. He was using trenbolone for 5 years straight, and he developed liver cancer, unfortunately. And by the way, guys, for you that don't know, liver cancer is one of the deadliest kinds of cancers because it's very quickly.
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah, so thank God you don't have that, and you're not using high androgens now, so hopefully you'll be able to heal up. It does happen to people otherwise.
Yeah, they said it could be correlated to steroid abuse or not. It could be not. It's not. There's no proof to say it did come from that or not. So, and like I said, when I signed up for that, that's what you have to sign up for. And I think a lot of people don't, like, until something happens that scares the shit out of you, that scares the life out of you, you don't realize how vulnerable you are to these things. And I didn't either for my entire life until I got to the end of my career. And, you know, you get older and then you start feeling weird and not feeling your best. And you start questioning, like, what am I doing? And I think that happens to a lot of bodybuilders. I really do. Like, at least the ones that think things through, you know, the smarter ones, because, you know, there's so much risk that goes involved to pushing your body to that level, you know. It's scary. It really, like, when you have that eye-opening moment, like that aha moment, like, it changes everything. Like, either you have most people have like kids, or they get like this job opportunity, or something happens to their health, or there's always like a moment you find out from bodybuilders that kind of change their perception on things, you know. And I think most athletes have that moment in bodybuilding where they're like, I don't know if this is worth it anymore, you know. Like, luckily I just woke up. I just become more woke, and I was like, this is not developing into anything. What am I doing? I'm going in the same spot I was 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, that was my aha moment. But unfortunately, some people have health scares, or some people have this or that, or something happens where they're like, I have to hang it up because my health's sacrificed, you know, at this point, you know, which a lot of bodybuilders we've seen that happen to, which is unfortunate. But it's playing with devil's advocate. It's devil's advocate there, you know? So.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting, this point you bring up, which is when you're younger, two things happen. Number one, you feel invulnerable, and you really are a little invulnerable when you're young.
You're a little bit,
5 grams. You know, I remember, you know, I wasn't living in the US, so I was living near Kuwait, where those guys have the real stuff. And I was
and it's legal there, right?
Yeah, it's legal. No, there's no problem. So it's very fun. You get deliveries of GH to your house, and So I tried some things then, and I'll tell you something. I was 22 or something. I felt nothing, no side effects. I would great. I would sleep fine. I would. My shoulders were huge. I was feeling wonderful. I didn't even feel any psychological, no anxiety, nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Zero.
That's one thing. But the other thing is that when you're younger, you also, for some reason, have this idea that being old is not fun. Like, you think that when I'm 30, things won't be fun. I have to party now because now is the time to be partying. I don't want to be a 40-year-old going to clubs.
Right.
But when you get to 40, I'm not there yet. But when somebody gets to 40, people tell me this all the time. They realize, hey, life is actually funner when you're 40. You know what you like. You know how to enjoy yourself. Yeah. And then you start to realize, wait a minute, I do want to live longer. But so
when you're in your 20s, though, when I look back now at my 20s, I should say, I didn't realize how happy I was because I was so confused about what I wanted. I didn't know what direction I was going in. And I stressed a lot about that. I didn't realize how much I did till I'm here now, obviously. But at the time, I look back at it like that's all I worried about was what am I going to be when I grow up, or what am I going to do when I get older? What's life after bodybuilding? What's life after this? And that's all I stressed about. So at this point in my life, I'm the most least stressed because I have my career for now. You know, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know my purpose every day. I wake up. I know what I have to do. Back then, dude, I was living hour by hour. I didn't know what was going to happen to me because I was a ticking time bomb, you know? I was playing Russian roulette with drugs. I was still partying. I was still waking up every day without a purpose. I didn't really have a job then. You know, I was personal training, doing diet. I was all over the place. So every day, yes, I woke up with, I have the opportunity to do whatever I want type of feeling. But I was so lost when I look back, you know? But when I had that moment after, you know, I turned pro and I'm literally on stage at USA's and I wasn't happy, I was like, there's something wrong here. You know, I'm not doing the thing I should be doing. I literally was like sad after I won because now I'm like, fuck, I have to move on now. Like the USA grind to me, Mr. USA is over. So where do I go now? And that's when like that whole year for me was a big transition year. You know, even though I did my first pro show, I was halfway there, half the prep. You know what I mean? I wasn't all there mentally. I wasn't focused like I was prior, you know? So that was like literally my moment. I was on stage in front of all these people after I'm holding my trophy. And I'm like, I was like forcing my smile because I was like, shit, it's all over. And like, it's a lot to accept though when you're young though, you know, especially when you're at that age. I was only 25 years old. So, but I lived like I'm 40 at the time, you know what I mean? So it's different. It's very different though, you know.
One of the great things though about being successful when you're younger and not being happy with that success is that you develop a lot of people go through life and they sort of don't think through what they're doing. They end up 45 and they have a midlife crisis and they go buy a Ferrari or date a 20-year-old girl or something because they don't, or they start, you know, they become like a mystic. They start doing DMT a lot or something like that because they don't know. They say, what did I do in my life? It's me. I never thought about what I just spent 20 years being an accountant. What is this?
So many friends that have done that.
Exactly. But when you come across these difficult emotional times when you're younger, it develops a wisdom in you that hopefully will guide the rest of your years so you don't have major regrets. You know what I mean?
That was definitely that's a very important thing you just said is the wisdom. Yeah, for sure. You know,
wisdom comes through adversity and through real pain and real struggle. And, you know, and then that builds the person you are. So you're going to have a kind of wisdom that if you ever have children or even for your coaching clients, you know, that you can pull from, that other people who just, you know, didn't think through their lives and didn't have difficulty.
Yeah.
No, they can't access that.
Yeah. You know, after that moment, and then I felt like my entire life, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but you know, my entire life regressed at that point. You know, it was supposed to be going up, you know, it did for a little while because I got, you know, I got more money and stuff like that for a temporary period, but all my contracts were coming to an end. My mentality of that everyday relentless attitude of pursuing a pro card was over at that point. You know, it was because that was my only goal, was to turn pro. I tell people all this all the time, like, why'd you retire? I'm like, because that was my only goal. I wanted to win Mr. USA. I wanted to be a professional bodybuilder. I wasn't trying to be an active pro bodybuilder. That was never, maybe if it happened earlier, I could have done it. But at that point, I'm already 10, 12 years in. I was ready. I was done, you know, like next, let's go level 2, you know what I mean? And, you know, and then at that point I'm like, how am I going backwards now? I'm supposed to be going up, you know? And then that was when I really had to turn my life around. So, but it's a lot to accept, because you're sold in bodybuilding, at least you're sold this vision of all this success. And, you know, back then, at least it was magazines and stuff. At least you got that to show for your work. You know, you had articles and pictures of yourself. Now is nearly nothing to work towards. I mean, honestly, I don't know what the goal is anymore for people to turn pro, because no one even knows who you are anymore. You know, there's no uniqueness about turning pro at Mr. USA or North Americans or nationals. Like, you're not even talked about anywhere, you know. And I feel like it's not like solidifying history, because there's no like paper article about you anymore. It's just on Instagram somewhere that you won. You know what I mean? It's different. The whole thing is different, you know? So
I, as an outsider, it seems to me like there's a little bit of like, you don't really need to succeed on a bodybuilding stage to develop that either. There are people on Instagram that are on the bodybuilding stage. They have some kind of physique of some kind, and they have 1 million.
I use Joey Swole as the biggest example for that. Like, I grew up with Joey, and I was he asked me to be one of the first shred athletes, you know, when Shreds was around.
Yeah.
And because Arvin is the owner, and he's from New Jersey too. I grew up with those kids, and I was like, fuck that. I'm not joining Shreds, like, because I thought it was stupid and dumb or whatever. Yes, I still think it is, because I never believed in what they were doing anyway. But, you know, look what happened to Joey's career. You know, Joey's never competed. He did like maybe one show, if that. I don't think he even did any. And just because he has a great physique, he's built a following more than almost all bodybuilders. So, and there's tons of guys like that just like him that done it, you know? So bodybuilding stage doesn't do anything for you anymore. Honestly, it's a platform, but it's not everything.
And then another element of this also is when you go, sometime when you're younger, you see, like you said, you see the image of what you're supposed to be as a bodybuilder or so on. And that attracts you for some reasons that maybe, I don't know how it is for bodybuilders, but for example, for me, I was going into private equity. For me, I didn't understand at the time, but I wanted to be very wealthy. And the reason why I wanted to be very wealthy was because I wanted independence. I wanted to be secure, to be, you know, to not get taken advantage of in society. I saw a lot of people who didn't have money, they get taken advantage of.
Which is true, though.
It's true. But sometimes, but then you work toward your goal and you start to make some money and you start to get closer to it, or at least you're close to the people. Like I had friends who were, you know, really, you know, billionaires and things like that. And you start to see they're not that happy. They have security, but is it worth all the stuff? Like, do you enjoy going to the gym or getting ready for the actual shows, or do you just want the end goal? Because you just want the end goal, then it's not worth it because you never are at the goal. You're always on the way there. You have to like the process and the actual goal. You can't like one or the other, right? Or you can like the process, I guess, also.
There is days where I would question. I mean, I think a lot of guys go through this for bodybuilding, at least. There's a lot of days where you're like, what am I doing? You know, you feel like you're spinning your tires. You're not going anywhere because, you know, bodybuilding is a long, drawn out process. You know, it's not like sports where you have a game every week or a couple games a week where you have a chance to show your performance that you've been working on. You know, you have a chance to showcase yourself, and you get accepted by the fans, or, oh, wow, look how LeBron James scored this many points this night. Like, you don't get that from bodybuilding. So it's a lot of lonely time where you're working on your physique to showcase it one time, maybe a year, if that, and maybe 2 times every, you know, a year, if that. So you have to literally like train your mind and your body to be okay with, I'm going to go into the dark or this lonely gym every day and showcase it for 5 minutes in a year from now. Like, how many people can really accept that? You know, that's a hard thing to accept. So The process for me was more about, it was for me because I loved lifting at the time. I changed, you know, you could change your goals in life. Things can, your hobbies can change. So for me at the time, I loved working out. I loved lifting. I loved getting a pump in the gym. I loved looking the way I did. So I didn't care about all the nonsense that came along with it. The show wasn't even the exciting part for me. I hated dieting. You know, I just liked being in like competition. I just liked competing with other men. So, and winning, of course. So that was what I was addicted to. So I could stay in that zone for a while, but most people have a hard time doing that. That's my biggest pet peeve with clients. They can't stay in off season. They're like, I want to do a show. I'm like, you're not ready though. Like, yeah, but I need a break. I'm like, okay, like it's just going to end up, it's going to crush your confidence by getting last place, but okay. You know, if you want to do that, and which I don't understand. I was more like, let's get the work done and then showcase it when you're ready. But a lot of people don't think that way. A lot of people don't.
Speaking of that, there's Chris Aceto's client, the guy who did really well at the last Olympia. He competed in Tampa. Well, I guess it was in New York recently.
Pat?
Yeah, Patrick. Yeah. Do you think he should have stayed off season and not competed this round?
So I could tell you something personal, which I don't think he'll care. I tell you. So he was going through a lot of personal things, which I think he shared online. He was going through a divorce. Oh. Whatever was going on in his personal life, which he used bodybuilding as something to kind of keep his mind off things. You know, he knew he wasn't big enough. He knew he should have taken time off, but he said, I need to stay focused on something. I need to keep the drive that to stay in the gym, because without it, I don't think I'm going to go to the gym. His biggest pet peeve is that he doesn't take his off season serious, and he can admit that. I mean, he's said it before. So this was helping him kind of just stay laser light focus on something, but he knew he shouldn't have been doing Tampa, but Chris didn't want him to do Tampa either. And he did it anyway, same with New York, but he did it anyway. So, I mean, he swears he's going to take off time now and grow. I would like to see him do it though, because does he have the best genetics in the world? I think he's got good genetics, but I don't know if he has like the craziest genetics that I think we're painting him to have. I really don't. I don't. He's out of a very small frame, so I don't know how much bigger he can get. Like his clavicle is only so wide. His muscles, you can only hold so much weight. You know what I mean? So you know how it is with that. I mean, you can only get so big. And some guys can get shredded but can't get big, or some guys can get big and not shredded. There's always that weird happy medium with people. So.
I think if it wasn't for the weight classes in classic physique, he should be the classic physique Mr. Olympia. Like that's beautiful. Beautiful. Like
I think the same thing. I think he's got a beautiful body. I think it's literally not a flaw on him.
It's incredible. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's one of the few bodies like everyone would be happy being like that year round. Yeah. It's incredible.
I don't know if weight's going to do him better, like justice. I don't know if that's going to help. I mean, you know how it is. Sometimes when people get bigger, it doesn't look right on them.
It might ruin it. The waist.
Yeah.
So we had a question on my Instagram, which is relevant to what we were just talking about. So Carved Out of Stone says, at the age of 47, he's finding this pursuit very hard to let go of, because he says, to me, self-improvement is multifaceted, and I like being big and strong. Both of you have been bigger and stronger previously. How do you mentally adapt or accept being smaller and weaker? I know you can say accept who you are at whatever size, but that's akin to saying don't read books or study, because you can be just as happy being less intelligent. How do you deal with mental adjustment of being less physically?
It's a good one.
Yeah, for you, I thought this was special.
Yeah, this is so the biggest thing I had a problem with was, and this is probably not going to pertain to everybody, but I was also always known as Big Nick. My nickname was Big Nick. Okay. So for me to struggle with people not seeing me big was my biggest pet peeve. I didn't want people to see me skinny, because most people know who have muscle. You probably experienced it too. You go anywhere, it's the first topic of conversation. Oh, why are you so big? Why do you have muscle? What are you doing? How'd you get like that? Do you take steroids? It's literally the icebreaker of every conversation. So for me to not go into a room and not be looked at or pointed at or go, oh, what do you do? It was a big mind fuck. It was, because I was so used to getting all the attention going everywhere. And that was what I was the most afraid of, But then I realized at the end of the day, these people mean nothing to me. Their opinions mean nothing. Them giving me that 30 seconds of attention does nothing for me but stroke my ego. It wasn't getting me any further in life. It wasn't bettering my bodybuilding career because these people that know nothing about me or don't even know me are giving me this 2 to 10 seconds of, of compliments or whatever else, So it's almost, you got to just do it for yourself and realize that it's a dead end. Like, being big and strong is great, but what's the risk reward? What is it worth? Like, are you big and strong because you're healthy, or are you big and strong because you're a bodybuilder big? I just, at the end of the day, at that point, I was old enough, mature enough to I think you need to be at that point. I mean, you got to grow up eventually and say, hey, what am I doing this for? Is it because I like to be big and strong? Because that's a different story. If you enjoy being big and strong, then you should do it. I don't think you should stop. But if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, like I realized I was, because I was just trying to keep up with being Big Nick and getting that attention and be able to post a photo and get all those compliments and feel all that love from people because I'm big. And then I realized, you know what? Like, this is not helping me anywhere. This is not helping my business. This is not helping my health and certainly not helping my ego, because it's giving me this inflated facade of myself, which that's not who I was. It really wasn't, because now I can look myself in the mirror. I love wearing nice clothes now, dude. I went shopping last week and bought things I haven't worn in 20 years that I can never even imagine wearing again. And I cleaned my closet out of 4Xs and 3X. I'm down to XL. So like, that was a big moment for me to actually have clothes that fit and feel good in clothes again, because I never felt comfortable in clothes. So that was the trade-off. I always had to wear uncomfortable clothes and look stupid in clothes because nothing fit right. So you got to find the trade-off eventually. You got to see like what you care about the most and what you don't really care about. And there's always good things. You can always find the good in things. And I realized like, I like wearing clothes now. I can dress in nice stuff again, so.
That's true. I have a bunch of suits and they look like clown suits. I can't wear them.
Bro, I held up my 44 jeans and I was like, what? Like, I couldn't even believe that those were tight. Like, I mean? Like, I had a hard time I put them on. It was like literally like I was wearing someone else's pants. And I almost am uncomfortable with how big I was. Like, I was like, that's disgusting. Like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? I had a what the fuck moment the other day. It was, especially the 4XL t-shirts, like they look like dresses on me now, So don't get me wrong, it was cool, but I am not into that anymore. Like, it's just not me anymore. You grow out of things, I'm sure the suits are hilarious though, right? Your shoulders.
I need to get them tailored. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I spend a lot of money on them. I can never wear my jackets anymore. But so Nick and I have very different perspectives, because Nick was genuinely huge. Like, it's a different level of kind of thing. My arms were 18.5 inches. I looked muscular. People used to come up to me in parties or wherever and, ask.
Yeah, but any muscle stands out though.
They still come and ask. But you were dealing with a different kind of thing, and you were big for your whole. You grew up big, so basically your whole education was around that. Whereas I was doing it on and off, 3 years here, 2 years there, whatever like that. So. But my experience was this. I realized, I think I always knew that the reason why I wanted to be strong was mainly because of a desire to not be weak. So like I grew up in a high school, maybe more than Nick's even. If we talked last time about your experience in high school, my high school was very violent, or not my high school, my middle school, my lower school, because I grew up abroad. So we were always fighting every single day, and I'm 5'10", but I was always average sized, and I used to get picked on or whatever. And I used to fight and have martial arts, but that's how I got into weightlifting, to be strong. So I knew that, right? And at some point, and then eventually, because I got into it, I started loving lifting weights, and that's how I kept doing it, and that's how I got into arm wrestling or squatting and all these kind of things. But at some point, what I basically realized was this. I was like 27 or something like that. And I realized, okay, if there's any harm, danger for my health, is going to start really now. And I realized a couple of things. Number one, humans are not meant to be strong. Okay. Like if you compare us to a chimpanzee, we're weak. We're weak compared to everything.
Very.
We're not that strong, right? We may be strong compared to each other. The second thing, so we're not built for that, right? But we are built for being intelligent, right? We're the smartest species in the whole world. Period. So that's one thing. The other thing is this: you focus on your physique as you go over the age of 30, you're not going anywhere but downhill unless you haven't worked out before. Unless you just started, you're going to get to some point. But by the way, if you start working out at 30, you're never going to be what you could have been if you started at 20, because there's a different growth. Like between 18 to 24, people grow in a way different way.
Yeah.
If you lost that, you lost that. That's gone. But the point is, you're basically, let's say, at least after the age of 35, you're going to go downhill a little bit slowly over time. You're not going to get much better. But if you go and you're going to harm your body in some kind of way, either with injuries, things like that. You don't want to be, have knee problems and hip problems and
the worst
problems when you're older and be in pain, because that's the main reason old people are in pain. It's called osteoarthritis. They all deal with that. On the other hand, if you focus on your brain or something, I'm not talking about being smart. I'm talking about like things that involve your brain, painting, doing some kind of art, some different kind of hobbies. You can get better as you get older. And you get, even if you're not as quick when you're older, you still have wisdom.
Yeah.
So and it doesn't hurt your body at all. So that's how I looked at it. I don't have, thankfully, at this age, I don't have any kind of confidence issues. I like the fact that people don't approach me and ask me that crap all the time. It was really annoying me.
So annoying. It's a very good point. It's a very good point, though.
Really, but every so often something will happen because I live around LA. Sometimes someone will say something rude to you, which they would never have said that.
Never.
They would never have said that to me 2 years ago. They wouldn't.
That's a good point too.
I never got into arguments because people would
nobody.
But now they say something. I just I got wise, and I take.
That was what used to get me in trouble, though, was my temper because of that. Because
that's the thing, though. Also, used to have a bad temper because no one would pick on us before, but we had bad tempers because of the steroids.
If someone did mumble something under their breath, forget about it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Snap. Forget about it. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, let me
it's good though. You're right though. You don't get bothered with questions anymore. That's for sure.
It's much. Yeah, I hated how do you lift? What do you work? What do you eat? I'm not here to. What are you doing? You think I don't?
It was the most random people.
Yeah.
I'd be like shoe shopping or something, and they're like, "Just hey, buddy, what's up?" I'm like, "What? Like, what do you do?" I'm like, "What? Leave me alone!" Like, and you can't be rude, And you're like, and if you're a dick, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna find like, what's your Instagram type of?" You know what I mean? It's like you can't win that battle ever. You have to be nice to everybody, and like. You get hounded everywhere. I mean, like especially at the gym. Forget about it. I couldn't even get a workout in. That's why I wouldn't even go to the gym at normal times anymore. It was
the worst thing would be like you'd go to a dinner or a party and there would be one guy who
it's attached to you.
Leo, you're huge. What happened? You weren't this big before. What are you doing exactly? Do you take steroids? And you have to tell them no.
And he follows you around everywhere.
Otherwise, he's going to keep asking. Yeah,
I'd be like, "What do you want me to say? Yes, okay, yeah, I did."
Okay, so Jason says, "Is low dose Cialis, 2.5 or 5 milligrams, good for your prostate and blood pressure? Also, good pumps in the gym." What do you think about Cialis?
I keep it for what it's used for, to be honest. It's an erectile dysfunction drug. I keep it for that. There's so many people that use it for pre-workout pumps or whatever, or for prostate or for this. But personally, I don't know too much about it to say, yes, it's going to benefit the blood pressure. It's going to benefit that. I used to use it just for fun when I wanted to have a better erection. I mean, that's what it's made for. Listen, there's enough things on the market in bodybuilding world to help your pump. I don't know why people need to take Cialis. That's just my opinion. It's short and sweet. And I just like to keep things for what they're used for. I hate when bodybuilders try to like change application or change what the drugs are for. Like should I shoot this like this and do that? Like, I'm like, no, like medically you don't even do that. So why would you do that as a bodybuilder? It's not going to benefit you anyway. So I say keep it for what it's used for. And that's that. And I think if you have blood pressure problems, I don't think you should be using Cialis for that or anything like that.
I really agree with you, Nick. And actually, this is something I said on a video about Fuad when he had a blood pressure issue and he got upset about it. But I was saying, look, if you found out that you had really high blood pressure one night, I'm not a medical doctor, this is not advice, but if I found out that I had really high blood pressure and I didn't have a blood pressure medication around, I wouldn't take a Cialis. I would take hydrochlorothiazide or something like that to get rid of some water in my body.
Right.
But let's talk about Cialis briefly. So Cialis is a PDE5 inhibitor. What else is a PDE5 inhibitor? Coffee, actually.
Coffee is, yeah.
So what Cialis basically, because of its effect on smooth muscle, it relaxes blood vessels. I agree totally with Nick. Use it for what it's used for. It does have some side benefits. There's been shown some studies where it helps kidney function. The main thing it's used for otherwise is for pulmonary hypertension, which is hypertension in the lungs. Mm-hmm. But really, it's not. If you have a blood pressure issue, you should take a blood pressure medication. And in my opinion, that would be an angiotensin receptor blocker over an ACE inhibitor because they have less side effects and other benefits. However, there are people that take Cialis all year long, 5 milligrams a day. And if you're really sexual and you're trying to have a lot of fun in that regard, I think that's really worth it. But otherwise, don't, And
I do obviously like it better than Viagra. That's for sure.
Viagra's crap.
Right? Viagra's crap. Yeah, it's the worst.
Like, you have to time yourself, and then you get stuck.
That's actually that's one of that's probably the only drug I think I took when I was younger that I had the side effects from. Blood pressure, the stuffy of the nose, nasal congestion. The worst. I'm like, why is everyone so excited about Viagra? When it first came out, I didn't understand it. It made no sense to me. It was horrible.
Now, one other thing about Cialis you should know, and you'll know this if you listen to anyone who has pulmonary hypertension and he's prescribed Cialis year long, they'll get less erections over time. So your body does adapt to it. So
oh wow, didn't know that.
That's one reason not to take it every day. So maybe you plan it out. I mean, the way it works is basically you take it 2 days before the event, and then it's built up in your system. You could take it 4 days a week or something like that. It won't dramatically reduce your blood pressure. It's not going to cause a lot of changes. No. So, this is interesting. So Sherp says, thoughts on Nick Walker, getting too big, too quick, health concerns. So a lot of people are asking about that or talking about it online.
Yeah, listen, I'm a little biased because I do know Nick on a personal level. I used to, and because my friend Dominic Cardone used to coach him. And, I did work with Nick temporarily as far as, helping him, make some extra money with coaching. And he worked for my website for a little bit. He did my forum. And he's like the nicest kid in the world. He really is. And so it's not that I feel bad criticizing him, but I am concerned. And the reason I'm concerned is because he's working with somebody that I just don't honestly I don't respect. And, his coach, I'm just not a fan of because of his history with people. And I know what Nick was doing prior, and it was already aggressive enough. It wasn't like Dom was putting him at a health risk. But he was aggressive enough where he should have been, pretty far advanced to where he was already, I'm saying, at the time with what he was doing, but he wasn't. And he was stuck for so long at this one spot with Dom. And Dom was very health cautious with him. He made sure he PCT'd, he made sure he took his health supplements, even though he had to, literally play like his parent to Nick to make sure he took all his health subs and did a PCT and actually took the correct dosage that Dom was giving him. So I know he's not a good listener to begin with. So it's scary to me to think that Matt is already dosing him at what Matt likes to dose people at, which is not low.
And then Nick, Matt Jensen?
Matt Jensen, yeah. And on top of it, Nick is probably adding his extra cocktail on top of that. You know what I mean? Because Nick was never doing what Dom told him anyway. He would eventually admit to it. But it's just scary to me that kid's so young and he's grown that fast over that short period of time. And I know the only difference is got to be the gear, because I know the way he trains hard. I know he eats regularly because his parents cater to him and he lives at home, so he has that luxury. So I know the only factor that's probably changed is that and the aggressiveness of it. So the fact that it's happened in less than 2 years is just because people didn't even know who he was 2 years ago. Maybe even almost a year ago, probably people barely knew who he was. So the fact that he's grown that much, and personally, I don't think he has a bodybuilder body. I really don't. His symmetry is way off. His structure is way off. He's got freaky muscles, but listen, you put him next to a genetic superior pro bodybuilder, he's going to get blown away. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, he's not – yes, he has a lot of muscle per square inch, but that's not bodybuilding. It's just not what wins shows. If that was the case, Rami would be winning everything. He doesn't even win shows. Yes, he's a top bodybuilder in the world. I'm not saying that. But when you want to get down to, critiquing him as far as bodybuilders go and being very, hard on him, I don't know where it's going to go from here. I just really don't. That's just where I'm at. I don't know where it's going to go.
So the way I don't know much about bodybuilding, but the way when I was looking at him, I was seeing that this guy is going to become like a freak who will never be number one because his waist is way too big. It's
way
not
too big.
Very blocky. It's not, and he doesn't have. I mean, I don't even know if it's possible to have the shoulder size that would deal with that waist. And his waist seems to be muscle. Honestly, it's just blocky.
It's just thick. Yeah, just thick.
So, but the other thing is, I feel like. Well, this is just speculation on my part, but the way that he seems to have grown, it doesn't seem to be something from androgens. This seems to be like a IGF-1 or high dose growth hormone for a very long time. Are people still taking 30 units of growth hormone in the industry? Do they do that? So I know people who do that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would like to say his is probably more related to insulin growth.
Insulin, yeah.
Just by the way he looks too, muscle-wise, because he has like that Dallas McCarver look where a lot of water, a lot of glycogen-filled muscle. It's not much detail to it. It's not granite hard. It doesn't have the separation that a mature muscle would have. So to me, that's a lot of like rushed muscle. He doesn't have, because even when he was shredded, he wasn't shredded. You know what I mean? Like there's no shoulder striations, no chest striations. The back was just like thick and just there, it wasn't detailed and etched. There was no fibers, to me, there's a lot of signs of rushing things, and a lot of the regular guy's eye probably won't see that, but when you see a chiseled, fine, refined physique where it's got all that detail in it. He doesn't have that, it was way too fast. If you look where he was 2 years ago, it's never close.
But of course, we don't mean anything negative. We wish him really the best, and I think it'll be really entertaining to watch him. I just hope his health is well. And
yeah, I just hope things slow down now. Like you got your pro card, chill out.
I don't think he's going to chill out because
I don't think so. I don't think so either.
I'm going to win the Olympia. I was like, oh, this is new. I never seen that before.
Yeah, there's so many like. I've been around the sport for so long. I'm not trying to sound like an old man or talk like I know everything, but how many guys I've seen do that same thing over and over and over
on interviews though, in private?
No. I mean, just like they come out of the gate and they're like this big celebration of he's going to be Mr. Olympia or be this big thing. And then just never, it's always the guy that's working in silence that comes out of the work. Like Phil Heath was grown from pro to Mr. Olympia in 6 years, like won his first Mr. Olympia from turning pro in 6 years. Like no one does that. No one saw that coming. He literally went from like nothing to everything, and I feel like our next big Mr. Olympia will do that again. The same with Ronnie Coleman, last place, Mr. Olympia. You know what I mean? Brandon Curry, he was the only one that took like forever to get there and was working at it and grinding and finally won Mr. Olympia. That was like the first one, but it's hard to say, like, I don't know. It just they never live up to all their
You know what you mean?
Yeah.
Do you think Brandon Curry has a chance to win this year? It's a minority chance, right? He's not the favorite.
He had a chance when Phil wasn't going.
Yeah.
But Phil is just, if you had the opportunity to see Phil in person, like pictures obviously do him justice, but seeing him in person just really solidifies everything. I mean, the detail on that man and the amount of muscle on that man is just, and listen, I'm good friends with him. I'm not just pumping him up, but he is the epitome of a fucking body. Like people would dream to look like that in person. You know what I mean? It's the craziest thing in person. You don't even believe what you're looking at. So Brandon's an amazing bodybuilder, but Phil's Phil. I mean, he didn't win 7 Mr. Olympias because he was average, in a row, like it's a whole nother level of muscle, it's just,
he doesn't get the credit he deserves for being.
He doesn't.
He could be the greatest that ever competed, and people don't say that. But I mean, his arms are unbelievable. His back, double biceps, unbelievable. I think Ronnie. A lot of the value with Ronnie is his lower body, maybe, but Phil also has a crazy lower body.
Yeah, like you look at him next to Big Ramy, he's not outsized, and he's a lot smaller weight wise too. So it's like that's how 3D that guy is, you know. And the muscle bellies are just like you said, his arms, everything is everything. It's just the detail on him is amazing.
What did you think of the Egyptian gentleman who was Chris Aceto's client? I forgot his name.
Yeah, Hassan. He man, I honestly don't. I mean, yes, he wasn't like sharp at which one was first, New York or Tampa? What was first?
New York.
New York.
No, Tampa was first.
Which one? He did
he did New York, and then he did the California thing.
Sorry, I'm sorry, California. Sorry, I apologize. So I think New York, he deserved to be higher. I honestly do. I think, you know, he wasn't 100%, but he has enough muscle to be on the Olympia stage 100%. I mean, he has like hanging muscle on him. He's dense, he's thick, and I don't know why he didn't take first or second. I have I really don't understand it. Cal, he didn't look like himself. He obviously was in the hospital. He had hemorrhoids. He obviously wasn't himself, but to be not even top 5 because of the amount of muscle he has, I just don't understand it. I mean, what did you say?
I was really impressed. I was shocked. And as being part Arab myself, I was like patriotic.
He's a freak. He's a freak.
His legs are incredible. So both Ramy and him have this crazy leg sweep thing, like hanging quads.
Monstrous.
He was like, what is that? Yeah, crazy.
And his arms too are like, he's got like doesn't have Phil Heath's arms, but he has some 3D arms though, like thick, and the brachialis, you can see every tricep insert and bicep insert, and I mean they're fucking huge, dude. And like hits a front double bicep, dude. It's like whoa, like you're like wow, like you know, I mean, impressive, dude, very impressive.
So I saw a few bodybuilding podcasts speculating on how are these Egyptian bodybuilders so talented, because there's been quite a few of them.
A lot of them now, yeah.
And I just want to shed some light from the history of Egypt. Many people don't know about. So Egypt obviously originally was like the people of the pharaohs that lived there, and then the Arabs invaded Egypt, and there became a lot of Arabs. And actually before that, the Greeks took over Egypt. So Egyptians have pharaohic genes from North Africa, Greek genes, so they're part Greek.
Oh,
they
wow.
have part Arab, so they're very mixed. And then in the last 600 years, they had an empire that is the most fascinating empire. Not many people know about it. It's called the Mamluk Empire. Mamluk in Arabic means owned. So what was this empire? Basically, the Egyptians had slaves. And these slaves came mostly from Eastern Europe. And many of them were like Albanian or things like that. And the slaves became so powerful that the slaves began to rule the country. So it was a really interesting situation where the actual head of government was a slave,
wow.
but his owner would report to him.
Wow.
Really weird thing. So basically,
very weird.
Egypt has tons of different kinds of genetics. And because of the Mamluks, it's sort of like what happened in America, where the weaker people would die off. Like the most strong people would survive, and then they would go into government. They would have a lot of kids. So Egypt has some of the most diverse genetics, and they also had slavery there. So they have tons. I mean, I've met some Egyptian people that have never lifted a weight. Some of the strongest people I've ever seen in my life.
They're massive. Like I remember when I first saw a picture of Osama bin Laden, and I didn't know how big he was. He was like a monster.
Yeah, he's Yemeni though. He's Yemeni.
Yeah, but I meant like that descent. You guys over there, like
there's some tall people. It's weird. The ruler of Qatar, he's 6'4", 6'5". Yeah, so crazy. They're weirdly tall. I know. Not all of them.
So crazy, but the genetics over there are. Everyone's like, it's the drugs. I'm like, no, it's their genetics, dude. Stop. Like, if China has all the same stuff, you see them jacked. There's like 2.
Good point. Good point.
You know, like they can have any drug they want. They have everything.
They make it all. Yeah.
Yeah, they have all the raws in the world. You don't see them walking around jacked. I mean, damn. You know, like there's only like. Did you see what happened when speaking of that show? I'm not trying to go off the tangent, but with that guy Samson with the Korean show.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
The rigging of the show, that was a mess.
That's rigged? You think so?
1000%.
Yeah, I didn't see the actual show, so I didn't see how he looked.
I don't know if I want to go on a tangent on here about it because.
Oh yeah, we should.
You want to talk about it real quick?
Yeah.
So Samson and I talk, through messages, and when he was over there, he told me the show was going to happen, but then I never heard from him. So I followed up with him a couple weeks ago after I saw that post. This was like 2 weeks ago. And or maybe last week, I don't remember when the hell it was that first started. When I first saw the first post, and I said, "You did the show?" He's like, "Yeah, it was closed off though, and no audience." So I said, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah, but they called me before the show and told me that there's a Korean judging panel, and that there might be some bias, judging going on." Wow. So he's like, "Okay," but he's like, "I'm here. I've been here for a month. I'm doing the show." And this is the promoter calling him, and he's like, "Well, I just want to let you know, and." Samson's like, "Okay, but I'm still doing the show. I'm coming to win." He's like, "Okay." So then they call him like maybe the morning before the show, right before it happened. And they said, "Oh, we're raising the prize money." He said, "Oh, okay, cool. Only for second place." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then he didn't disclose how much it was, but he's like, "Okay, that's kind of weird. Why are they telling me that?" He gets to the show and he's waiting to go out to do his individual posing. All the trophies are on the table. There's a trophy there for second place with his name on it. And it's like double the size of first place. And it says, most popular bodybuilder on it. Samson Duda, second place. So he's like, what the fuck? Like, that's kind of weird. So then the show happens. He said no one was allowed to take photos. Nobody was allowed to video anything. He wasn't allowed to even post about it. The promoter said, don't even talk about the show happening. So he's like, okay, that's kind of weird. Like, how come I can't talk about the show happening? So then obviously he took second place. He took the trophy. He's like, this is weird. He didn't fight up, but then they offered him more money to be quiet. That was what the deciding factor was, that he realized that this judging panel didn't care if he was there or not. And there was only 4 guys in the show. So they gave him more money to stay quiet. They said, just be quiet and don't tell anybody what happened. And he's like, okay. But he's like, at least I got compensated. But at the same time, he's like, this is corrupt, like.
I guess they were trying to get a Korean to the Olympia.
They wanted that guy Chul to qualify, to be like he's the first open bodybuilder from Korea to qualify for the Olympia. So that was the bullshit that they pulled. But I mean, that's fucked up, dude. That's really fucked up. That guy sat there for a month. He lost his job. As he's a carpenter, he lost his job because he was there for so long. And, he had to go through all that shit too on top of it. So
is he going to the Olympia? Does he have enough points?
Samson?
Yeah.
No, he's doing Spain now.
Oh.
So
Spain gives out 3 though, right?
What was that?
Spain gives out 3
points. I heard top 3 they're doing there, which is crazy. I don't
getting through.
I hope they have enough. It's going to be a very, very weird Olympia. People start qualifying soon, because it's not going to be a very deep lineup for the Open, at least. There's not many guys qualified that are like stars, that are going to draw an audience, if there's going to be an audience, which we'll have to see what happens. But it's a very weird scenario, that whole situation. But, it is what it is. But I'd be pissed. I'd be fuming, especially the fact that he didn't lose that show. That guy was awful. I mean, come on. Like,
I would think that somebody would complain to the IFBB that you can't be that corrupt. But I guess there's some country.
I mean, it got back to them, so I don't know what they're going
to. They had like, I would assume that they were in on it because they want a Korean. Maybe Korea will.
I don't know. That's what I don't trust them. So
that with Chinese competitors, I don't know if you notice, sometimes they're not like at a high level, but they get placed a little bit higher because there's a lot of market in China, which makes sense.
It's a massive market there. I mean, you're a bodybuilder there. Forget about it. I mean,
Milos is constantly there making tons of money. I think.
Yeah,
that's right. So we have a question on test suspension, which I it's still a little bit interesting. He says, Tatty Daddy. What are these? Tatty Daddy? When using test suspension pre-workout while on test enanthe, do you increase your AI?
No. There's no ester attached to it. It's in and out of your bloodstream so fast.
Exactly.
The reason you're using is because it's a test, it's got no ester attached to it, so you don't have to worry about any aromatization. But the thing with suspension is, nowadays, I don't know if you're really getting suspension, I think a lot of it's just like a methylated prop or something, or a menth. Suspension, like real suspension, like when you'll know if you take an injectable suspension. Like when I used to take an injectable suspension of 50 milligrams of an amp, you get a crazy feeling in your body. I mean, it's like taking a halo testing, like from back in the day. You get this I don't know how to even explain it. It's not like adrenaline. Actually, it's a little bit of adrenaline pump. It's not stimmy. But it's like you get amped up. I mean, it fades hard. Like you crash very hard from it. That's how you know like the suspension's good, because you'll come up for like a good hour, maybe 2 hours, and then you'll like your energy, your motivation, you will crash like literally instantly. That's how you know it's got no ester attached to it. But the recent suspensions I used at the end of my career, they weren't good. Like I didn't feel anything. I feel like I was just shooting like a water-based, like it could be just been a Winstrol for all I know, a water solution stuff. Because like the old suspension, I mean, I don't know if maybe I was getting immune to feeling things, but man, like you were ready to rock. You didn't need a pre-workout or anything. So, but aromatization, no, I mean, I didn't notice anything from that, and I don't think you should, right? I mean, I don't think.
No, I'm sure it does aromatize, but it's in there so short a time that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I used to take that was one of my favorite drugs. I used to take no ester and an oil compound, like probably 3 times a week. It's
on top of your basal.
I would take either anadrol or test suspension, because I was lifting for strength, and I like to have fun in the gym. And you take test suspension, you go to the
so
gym.
Much fun.
You're a monster. You're a god.
Yeah.
You're having the time of your life.
Especially you and anadrol, forget about it, dude.
Yeah, I would take sometimes. I take like 100 milligrams of test suspension, and then like 50 milligrams of anadrol, or even 25 or something like that. I cut it up, and that is a beautiful combination. Yeah. So, but yeah, you absolutely don't have to take an AI. There's no need to do that. Also, you should question why you're taking AIs in general, because you should be taking AIs because either you have not got your glands removed, or because you want to be dry. And if you want to be dry, this thing is coming in and out of you very quickly. But you shouldn't use it every day, because you will
Oh yeah.
If you use it every day, you won't feel it as much. It has to be like 3 times a week max.
Do you believe? Hold on, real quick. You said something important there. You said something about when you haven't had the gyno surgery done. So are you the guy that doesn't like to use anti-estrogens when they already had the gland removed? Unless
you're a bodybuilder or something and you're trying to look good all year round.
You don't think off season is necessary to balance and to counter suppression,
Basically, there's 2 reasons. The estrogen does 2 things that are very helpful. It really basically works against plaque buildup in the arteries.
Right.
It is also an antioxidant. So it deals with oxidized LDL in the arteries and stuff like that. The more you have, the more protective. Now, it does have one bad element I should mention. It could cause increased bleeding times and potentially intracranial hemorrhages, but you're unlikely to get that. But basically, it really works against the atherosclerotic stuff. And the second thing is androgens, in the absence of estrogen, kill neurons in the brain. They're neurotoxic. But when you put estrogen there, especially at high doses, that doesn't happen. So unless you're like a water buffalo and you're really worried about it, or and if you are, you probably should take a diuretic, in my opinion, rather than a low dose diuretic, rather than take an AI, because the estrogen really will protect you long term. It'll also make all your lipids a little bit better. Your LDL and HDL will all be a little bit better. So there's a lot of reasons to not.
So you wouldn't have it in someone's program if you were going to build something for somebody for off season. You wouldn't have anything in there at all.
No.
If they had the gland removed.
No, if they're health conscious, estrogen is not going to build muscle though.
No,
progesterone will though. Many people don't realize progesterone builds muscle. Estrogen doesn't.
Right.
But it's not going to build muscle. So if the person's health conscious, I would leave it there. If they're not, they'll feel better if they take an AI.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. So someone is asking, man, we only got through a few of these. They're very good questions, but this one is definitely for you. I have no idea what to say to this. So this guy's dad, Life Cody. He says, you got a lot of dads asking you questions. He says,
a lot of dads.
How do you decide when to up carbs and fats when recomp diet protein is at 1.5 grams per pound? He said he's recomping. He's taking 1.5 grams per pound. How do you decide?
I would, at this point, if you made it this far, you probably would know if you're, I like to say, a carb dieter or a fat dieter. So, what I like to do with people, even just from a coaching standpoint, is start out at, let's say, you're doing 1.5 grams of protein, start out at a basic level of, let's say, 200 grams of carbs and 50 grams of fats. Test out how your body responds to that type of diet, see the results. Are you have energy? Are your pumps good? Are your workouts good? Is your body progressing? At this point, you should know if you're a carb dieter or a fat dieter. So it's kind of hard to answer that without knowing your type of body or how your body responds to things. But I think you should do a test and realize, okay, my body responds very good to high fats or moderate fats or high carbs, low carbs, medium, mediocre carbs. And obviously cardio is going to be a big caliber, part of whether or not you're burning fat. Is, are you metabolic rate high enough? Are you on gear? There's a lot of variables that I would like to address before I'm like, hey, go this route. But you can't really go wrong with a very low fat diet and a carb cycle. I mean, like doing a low, medium, high day, cycling carbs and keeping protein at 1.5 grams. Honestly, almost 9 out of 10 people could probably respond to that. I'm doing a carb cycle diet. If you're recomping, obviously you're trying to lower body fat and build muscle. So carb cycling, we're great there. You're probably not going to want to have that many additive fats anyway if you're doing a carb cycle and you're trying to recomp your body. But unless you're doing a ketogenic diet, that's a whole different story. But I think carb cycling is probably the way to go. It's hard to answer this without having all the variables addressed. But recomp diets, I'm not that big on calling it a recomp because it's hard to say like what you're really doing at this point. People are like, it's usually like a limbo stage, right? You're like, do I want to build? Do I want to lose? And people are trying to do both. And it just never plays out well in my opinion, but
Jason Blah has been recomping for like 10 years.
I just feel like it's kind of like you're lazy, but you don't want to push one way or the other, Yeah. I tell people yes, you could build muscle and lose fat, but the only reason that's happening is because you're building muscle and there's just less fat in your body. Obviously there's less fat cells. So it's not like you're really doing that. It's just happening because that's the rhythm it happens in when you're building muscle. You have less body fat on you, but that's not what you're really targeting when you're building. You're in a caloric surplus at that point. So the only way to really truly lose body fat is you've got to be in a deficit. At some point, so to get shredded. So I think people's perception of that is like very blurry. They don't know what the hell they're talking about, to be honest with you. But I was never trying to do both at the same time.
I agree. So, so Ian asks, how long do you give a training split style before you know it's working? Basically, how long do you stick with something before you know it's working? The way I see it is this: if you're getting stronger, then it's working. Like either you can do more reps, you can do more weights. Usually 3 or 4 weeks, you'll know if you're getting stronger or not. And even for bodybuilders, because if a bodybuilder is getting stronger, he's going to get bigger.
Right. Yeah. Now, you train like a power lifter or did you train like a bodybuilder or both?
No, power lifter.
Power lifter? Yeah. So you did like pyramid training pretty much?
I did conjugate training, like West Side
okay.
Bar.
Yeah. Okay. So you did West Side Barbell. Okay.
Our exercises weren't always the same. They would rotate, but
yes,
you eventually get back to the same exercise, and
right.
You're getting stronger.
Right. Because the cycle at which you would get back to that exercise again, at that point you did other auxiliary exercises that would benefit that one, like your bench, your squat, your deadlift. So, I kind of train like that myself because I would like to keep my basic compound movements in for chest, back, and legs, let's just say, and shoulders. I like pressing, obviously that builds a chest, that builds shoulders, legs. You have to do some type of parallel movement like a squat or hack squat to build legs. Can't just sit there and leg press, I don't think, to get the legs that you want as a pro bodybuilder. You can build legs with leg presses, absolutely, but to get the detail and to tie in all the hamstring, the glute and everything, you're not going to get that from not squatting or doing a hack squat of some sort, front squat, whatever. So for me, I think keeping the basics in there at all times and changing the auxiliary exercises, like, for me, my arm exercises varied from week to week. I would just do whatever because arm exercises to me, they're all the same and they're all equal or greater to, As long as you feel it is what I always stick with arms. Like if you feel cables and machines better, stick with them. Don't do free weights. You don't have to do free weights to build arms. Same with like chest. Like I liked my incline presses. I wasn't big on flat for my chest. It's just how I felt. And I think keeping the basics in and then always rotating the auxiliary ones. Like maybe I use a hammer strength over Icarian, or I use the Life Fitness over the hammer strength. Those didn't matter to me. I always focused on the building blocks of building a chest, and that's, dumbbell or barbell presses or squats or shoulder presses, military presses, or dumbbell rows or barbell rows. I always kept those in. I honestly didn't really vary those much.
How many reps did you do for legs? Did you do like 20 reps? Did you do more reps for legs?
For me, since I was a runner, I had a lot of fast twitch muscle fibers. So me, like low reps just did not stimulate my legs. Like
I don't think they do for anyone. Everyone,
you don't think so?
More growth when they do 20 reps. I've noticed that.
Interesting. Okay, because I felt like just anything sub 10 reps did nothing. Even 12, like it. I wasn't even getting a burn at that point. Lactic acid wasn't even happening at that. No matter how heavy I could push it, didn't matter. But I didn't get that lactic acid and that pump like I needed to sub 12 reps. I always had to push past that,
I noticed this when I started adding this thing in powerlifting called the Widowmaker set at the end of my workouts, which is like a squat set where you do like 10 repetitions and you breathe a little bit, then you do 3 more, 4 more until you get to 20. I was never trying to get bigger legs, but they just grew really rapidly from that.
Interesting.
And then everybody I've told to do like 20 to 25 reps with like rest pauses in between a little bit, they all grew much better. I don't know if this is commonly known though.
That's interesting to hear, because I really didn't get any, like I wouldn't even get sore. I could do whatever kind of weight, whatever exercise, and if I didn't push the reps, nothing would happen. I literally didn't feel like I even worked out. So I just wasn't breaking down muscle tissue at that point, I just think legs can withstand a different type of stress level than the rest of the body, because you're on them all day, right? Like same with calves. Like that makes,
I was about to say, yeah,
it makes a big difference when you're training. Your upper body's not getting much stress throughout the day. It's not what's holding your weight, like your legs are. Especially who people have manual labor jobs, they have the skinniest legs. Yeah. They're ripped, but they're skinny. They can never get legs for some reason. It's something weird about it,
Which is why going on like a steep incline, walking on a steep incline on a treadmill can grow your calves a lot. Even though you're doing like heavy weights with 10 repetitions, nothing happens.
Yeah, heel toe.
Exactly. So someone asked, can you truly grow into a show, whether it's with SARMs or PEDs in general? I have an idea on this, but I'm curious how you think of it.
I would like to go back and forth on this one. So I think your starting point has a lot to do with when people say whether they're going to grow into a show, right? Like what's your starting point is the biggest, like if you're already jacked and you're lean, let's say 12, let's just use a number, 12, 15% body fat, you're not growing into a show. I'm sorry. You're not. You already have the muscle mass on you. You're going to be lesser than you were when you started the prep. But if you're like, let's say like a Kevin Lavoni, you're just emaciated and you're starting from ground zero and going to a prep for a show, obviously you're going to grow. You haven't been doing anything prior. So I don't know what point are you talking from? Are you talking from somebody that's already been consistently bodybuilding and goes into a show? Or are you saying like from a starting point 0?
I think people hear other people say, I'm going to grow into the show. And then they're like, wow, this is interesting. What's he doing that makes him grow into the show? Well, what's he doing is that he's either not on steroids right now or not on much.
Right.
Or he's like really unfit right now. So that if you go on trend and you go on your competition cycle,
you have to go up.
Then you're going to grow because you were skinny and you weren't taking anything. But if you were on a proper off season, you shouldn't grow into a show. That means you fucked up your off season.
Yeah, thank you. That was gonna be my finishing touch right there. Like you weren't bodybuilding then if you can grow into the show then, in my opinion.
Growing into a show means you screwed up most of your year and now you're going to catch up. Whereas everyone else has already grown and they're going to perfect everything, right?
Yeah, there's no way you come in heavier if that's going to be the deciding factor if you grew or not at the show date before you started the prep. There's just no way if you're already bodybuilding that entire time. So I just think it's a terminology that's abused and used for marketing purposes. It's not really a thing, People use it to catch people's attention. That's really all it's for, to be honest with you. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, we've done almost 2 hours. I'll do one more question, but I gotta tell you, I really
Holy shit, it's been that long?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think people will like it too. It's nice to have two different perspectives.
Yeah, I like it. It's really good. Really good.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Okay, we'll do one more. So the almighty Sinbad says, is it, and we'll keep the rest for next time. We have a lot.
Okay.
So,
that's fine.
is it possible for a person with cancer or AIDS to gain muscle mass and maintain gear or not? And then he says, God forbid I only asked that question with cancer, because maybe it could give them hope. Okay, this is a little out there, but I just want to say something. So, this is a little out there, but I just want to say something. So there's a couple of interesting things I should mention. One thing is that people who have HIV, especially people who have AIDS, are often on steroids. They give them growth hormone because they have like muscle wasting and issues like that. They're muscle wasting disorders, and they want these people to maintain their muscle. Why do they want them to maintain their muscle? The main reason is because when you don't have muscle, you have bad glucose metabolism. So your glucose has to be stored somewhere. If you don't have muscle, you end up much more likely to be diabetic, or you could have atrophy in your bones and things like that. So that's one of the reasons they give those people those things. It's much harder for them to be muscular. With that said, I live in LA, so I meet a lot of people who have HIV, and I've seen some muscular HIV people around West Hollywood where he.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, so they do exist. But in regard to cancer, when you have cancer, the worst thing, I'm not a doctor, obviously. When you have cancer, the worst thing you would want to do is to try to grow, because your cancer is growing.
Right.
Anything you can do that makes your body grow, like taking protein in, turns on mTOR. mTOR also grows your cancer.
Yep.
And mTOR also affects IGF-1, and IGF-1 grows all cancers. So the worst thing you would want to do is to try to gain muscle grow when you have a cancer. Unfortunately, a lot of people that have cancer, they give them really crappy diets because they're trying to keep them. They try to keep them from shriveling up or losing too much weight. When in reality, all that sugar and that stuff is also growing the cancer.
Yeah.
So there's a change in this now. With the fasting and all that. Walter Longo, the medical community.
What do you think the best diet is for somebody with cancer?
It really depends on the cancer. Let me tell you. So some cancers don't grow very well when there's ketones and no sugar. Okay, so some I think pancreatic is one of them. There's a couple of cancers. No, there's a lot of cancers that do very well with ketogenic diets. There's two cancers that actually grow faster with ketogenic diets, and those two I can't remember which they are. They may be pancreatic or
that's interesting.
Else. I can find a list for.
I know the sugar thing. Obviously, that's obviously a common thing, because I always hear about hospitals giving people like peanut butter and jellies and these crazy meals. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it's just accelerating everything. It's kind of like a catch-22, though, right? I mean, it's like you could you use these things to grow muscle, but at the same time, like you said, feeding it is the worst thing possible for it. Protein diet, that environment is just going to make you worse. It's going to accelerate everything. So. Exactly. It's scary. It's fucking scary, dude.
So it depends on the cancer, but if you're talking about someone that's trying to avoid getting cancer in the first place in the long term, what you basically want to do is have less growth factors going on in your body. So the more protein you eat, so that's why protein consumption is shown to reduce lifespan. It's mainly because of cancers. The more protein you eat, there are other reasons too, but the more protein you eat, the more your body's in a growth phase.
Yeah.
And sugar, simple sugars. The more simple sugars you have, there are, as I said, a couple of cancers that will grow on a ketogenic diet, but broadly speaking, you're much safer.
Yeah.
And then of course, if you do things, next time we'll talk more about supplements and kidney. And
I definitely want to talk about that with you, because that's a great subject. So because there's so much, to me, there's so much bad information out there about supplements, and then obviously I'd asked you.
So Nick sent me a message saying, "Hey, what supplements do you take?" And I said, "It's really long. Like it'll be really hard for me." And then he was like, he thought I was like blowing him off or something. The next day I sent him a picture of the supplement.
Like I said to you, I'm like, well, then send me a picture.
Yeah, I sent him a picture. He was like, what? So I told my wife afterwards, I was like, Nick asked me about supplements. She started laughing. She burst laughing. He thought you could do a lip. No, I take a lot of things, I take a full pill bottle just in the morning of like a CVS pill bottle.
Now, real quick, before we go, I know we're stretching this, but do you worry about your liver and kidneys from all the pills you take, or you're saying that's fine?
No, my liver values are incredible and my kidney values are incredible. The lowest they've ever been in my life. Most of the supplements I take actually improve liver and kidney function.
Okay. Yeah, interesting.
because of a variety of reasons. Some are specific to the liver, but the main reason is they all improve oxidation and oxidative status in the body. So they almost all of them reduce the damage being done to the liver from other things that may be liver toxic.
Now,
so actually my liver value is like, I'm sure you're aware of the ALT, AST. Mine
of course.
10 and 15.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, very low. And they've only been like this since I've started doing this. Unfortunately, a lot of these supplements, they do quite a bit on their own. Like today, right when we're done, I'm going to make a video on garlic, which will be interesting. But a lot of them do a little on their own. But when you combine a lot of them together over time, you really get a big difference. Like my C-reactive protein is very low. It used to be really high. My liver values are way better. My mind is very clear. There's a lot of effects.
And you wake up consistent every day.
Yeah, my circadian rhythm is really on point.
Perfect.
By the way, do you have SR9009? Do you carry that?
Yeah.
Oh, do you do it in an oil base, or you do have?
No, it's capsule, and it's bioavailable. It works. And that improves it. Oh yeah.
Because I've read all the studies on SR9009. They're all
and they all say liquid form, right?
No, they all injected it, but they're
all injected.
One group
okay.
that researched it, and they never tried oral. So I tried to contact them to find out if it's bioavailable orally, but I couldn't get in contact. So you would know, because once you tried, you'd wake up.
Yeah.
Oh, so it works well, huh?
Oh yeah, it works. If you want me to send you something to try,
I love it. I have some. No, I have.
Oh, okay.
I love it. I love it. That's a great.
Yeah, no.
I really think people above the age of 30 should really start, like especially 40, because your circadian rhythm gets messed up, and gets messed up.
That was one of the biggest things I had to fix.
Yeah, if you can inject that in the morning and then you take melatonin at night, you really will hardwire your circadian rhythm.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to go into about all that stuff.
Yeah,
that's a really good. A lot of people, no one talks about that stuff. Nobody.
It's so important. I think a lot of the diseases of aging come from the circadian rhythm being fucked up. Like when you get older, you sleep, and basically you're awake when you're sleeping, and then you're sleepy when you're awake. And, yeah, especially
people don't talk about that at all.
Yeah, they do actually in the health world. It's becoming.
Oh, it's popular now?
Now it's becoming popular, but there's a guy called Sachin Panda who popularized it. He's the leading researcher in circadian stuff from the Salk Institute.
Interesting.
We'll talk more about it next time. Listen, Nick, I got to tell you, I really enjoyed talking to you. I'm really happy.
Likewise. I'm glad we did this.
For this show. Yeah. Hopefully everyone will love it too.
I think they're going to really love the different perceptions on things. And, it's a good conversation. How do you not like it? And they love that stuff. So.
All right. So I'll talk to you soon.
I appreciate it. And we'll talk soon, man.
All right. Have a great day.